This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 511 of the Yellow Wall Pod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we'll talk about the possible return of Jadon Sancho, other transfer targets the Black and Yellows may have, and we will answer some listener questions. For that, more joins me Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, what year is it? Sancho returning? Is it 2023 again?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I guess if he's going to return, but maybe we'll start with a listener question on that subject, if I may, because Rob Gordon, aka Falter, at Superbad98 on Blue Sky has asked whether we should bring back Sancho, and he says that he believes that since it's a more long-term deal this time, he could become one of the faces of the club and potentially a club legend. And what do you make of this take, Lars?
I mean, I guess it's a bit of a presumption in terms of it being a long-term deal, which I would say is the most important aspect of the entire thing. I think if Dortmund wants Sancho back and vice versa, it has to be a long-term commitment. I don't know how contractually you would, fixate that. Maybe you give him a certain amount of money after a certain amount of years to keep him around or whatever in terms of an incentive. But if it happens again, it has to be for the long haul, and there needs to be a complete commitment from Jadon Sancho to be in Dortmund for the, let's say, next 5 years or so, which would take him to being 30, I think. So basically, we're talking about a player who should come into his prime now and who's leaving Manchester United with his tail between the legs, and Dortmund kind of being, I don't want to say a last resort because I'm sure he could find another club somewhere else. But, the rumors about Juventus, for example, have cooled down quite considerably. Remember that Chelsea actually paid Manchester United so they didn't have to keep Sancho instead of exercising their buy option. So it's not like Jadon has too many options, and I think we all know that he functions in Dortmund. He likes the club, he likes the fan base, he's well liked by the fans, by the players whom he still knows. I think it's a scenario which makes a lot of sense for all parties involved if Sancho is ready to forego a lot of his salary because he's making far too much money in his Manchester United contract, and B, if it's a clear commitment from both sides that it's for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, however many years, and not just an opportunity to get back on track and then leave for the Premier League again.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you look at the naked numbers, Jadon Sancho's goal plus assists per 90 peaked in the 2019-2020 season, where he had an average of 1.3. The next season, his final season at Dortmund, it dipped a little bit to 0.83, but then at Manchester United it was at 0.28. Manchester United again 0.48. Then at Dortmund in the second stint it was at 0.38. Manchester United again, when he returned, played I think 3 games, like 79 minutes. Not really something that you would recognize is at 0.00, of course. And then his stint with Chelsea, where he played like 1,700 minutes, was at 0.36 again in terms of average, which is a little bit lower than his second stint at Dortmund. So in other news, Jadon Sancho is almost a whole goal or assist away, on average from his peak time at Dortmund, which is of course something you will have to consider. But of course the reporting is, I think it was Bild who reported it, that he is willing to take about half of his or pay cut basically on half his salary right now. He's approximately or reportedly at 16 million per year, and he would accept 8 million per year, which I think for Dortmund would be an acceptable amount of money, that does not put him under the top earners. And right now, I don't think he has earned that, to be honest, considering how his form recently was. Obviously, I did not really observe Jadon Sancho much at Chelsea, so I don't exactly know how it went for him there. Obviously, we know how it went for him here. I would surmise it in so that I thought that Jadon Sancho was a very more mature player than his first stint. Certainly takes defending and playing as a collective way more seriously than he did beforehand, and I thought he was a little bit more well-rounded as a player overall, but also at the same time, I think his flashiness has suffered a little. You saw it in instances, especially in the Champions League, that he does have some ridiculous skills and knows how to utilize them here and there, but it didn't show often enough. And of course, the main weapon that Jadon Sancho had at Borussia Dortmund was Marco Reus, because that was the synergy that he had that I don't think he had with any other player. And so, obviously, with Marco Reus having retired to the MLS, that is something that's going to be very hard to replicate. Maybe he can combine with Joe Bellingham. Maybe this is something Dortmund would be looking at. But Lars, if you sign Jadon Sancho, where and how do you think Niko Kovac would utilize him? Would he be the new number 10? Would he be another winger? How do you think Jadon Sancho is best utilized if he were to return to Dortmund?
I mean, seeing as there aren't any wingers in Niko Kovac's plans, it's pretty clear to me that he would either be just the classic number 10 or maybe play as like a secondary striker, which he's done on occasion at Dortmund. Not very often, but from time to time. I mean, he has a nose for the goal. He has he has nice movements, let's say, when he sticks his head in those positions. He finishes well. I mean, you already mentioned some of the numbers. Those, especially, in his first Dortmund stint, he had quite good scoring numbers, which isn't always the case for young wingers who most people tend to think of as dribblers, such as Sancho. I think he has more end product than you would probably give him credit for if you only see him, from time to time. So I think he'd be probably a 10, which to me, especially, long term, given that Julian Brandt's contract is going to run out, they're going to sell Gio Reyna, or if he stays, his contract is also running out next year. So they don't have a clear-cut option for the 10 spot unless you think Joe Bellingham is that. And I think he might be in some games. Obviously, with his profile, he can play basically everything in central midfield. But as we talked about last time, also looking back at the Club World Cup, I think ideally you want Bellingham to be free to roam between the boxes and, get stuck in defensively as well as driving the ball forward, maybe popping in a striker position from time to time, just because of his, great asset in terms of his physicality. So I think the plan would probably be for Sancho to play the few minutes that there are for wingers still in the system, but especially looking forward, he would probably be Dortmund's number 10. And I think despite, his downturn, let's say, since he joined United for the first time, I think there were enough glimpses in his second stint at Dortmund, and also from what I've seen at Chelsea, it wasn't like he looked completely out of shape or anything. It's just that they have a ridiculous number of squad players in attacking positions, and he played more in, let's say, the Conference League. I think he scored in the final. Then, week in, week out in the Premier League. But from what I've seen, I still think he's, at least on on paper or going by potential, probably the one player Dortmund can target this summer who has the ability to become something quite special. Because let's face it, if Sancho's career trajectory had gone the way we all thought when he first turned out at Dortmund, I think there would be no way that he'd be considered, an option for Dortmund in 2025.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that take, because we thought he would be one of the absolute stars right now in world football. And I have to issue one tiny correction, because I was here on FBref, but I only looked at the domestic leagues when I read out the stats. So it's not really a collection, but when you take all competitions into consideration, Jadon Sancho actually had a goal plus assist per 90 at 0.52 at Chelsea, which is obviously a little bit higher than what I read out earlier. I think it was 0.36 or so. And for his last Dortmund stint, if you include all competitions, it's only at 0.3. So a little bit lower, but nevertheless, that is actually a little bit more encouraging that, his production at Chelsea probably somewhere during the European nights was a little bit higher. And I just looked at this take on success rate, and it never drops anywhere below 40%. It's always hovering between 45-50%, and I think in his peak season at Dortmund it was somewhere around 60%. I think for someone that is obviously expected to beat defenders on the dribble, that is a decent number. I've not quite looked at his attempted take-ons, because that number has dropped quite a lot, even though while he was at Dortmund, the last time it was actually the highest it ever was. Attempted take-ons was almost 8 per game. So that's pretty high. Usually it's somewhere around 4 or 5. I'm really intrigued by this scenario, and I'm a little bit with I assume his name is Rob. It is also my assumption that if Dortmund were to sign Jadon Sancho, and it would be a long-term deal, that Jadon Sancho would establish himself as a starting player. I think he is a very good number 10. I think he is also a good successor to Julian Brandt, if you will, because I do assume that Julian Brandt will leave, and I think he would make a very decent number 10. I think my gut feeling tells me this is going to be successful. I don't know, however, if I'm just romanticizing things, but the thing with Jadon Sancho is, for all the off-field troubles that he had, lack of discipline back in the day where, he did not show up to training session on time, and, the falling out he had with Ten Hag and whatnot, but what he never really had, and maybe I'm forgetting about things, but I don't think he ever had really big injury problems. So availability-wise, I think Jadon Sancho is a very reliable player, unless I'm talking nonsense right now, Lars, but I don't really recall any big either muscular problems or other injuries that really kept him out for too long.
No, I think you're right. Nothing comes to mind, which obviously is a bit of a bit of an outlier for Dortmund players, because like even Erling Haaland had a few niggles at Dortmund, but in terms of Sancho, I don't really recall anything. So, I mean, I think it really all comes down to the level of commitment. As I said previously, I don't think it's really a question whether
it's going to be 100%.
Yeah, I mean, Dortmund can afford the player. I don't think there's any question about that. I think we all think he would probably make them better, but the question is, how committed is Sancho to Dortmund in terms of how long does he want to stay? How much money is he willing to forgo? And also, to be honest, turning things around, how committed is Niko Kovac to the idea of implementing such a free spirit, let's say, because we've seen how little he used Jamie Gittens, who tends to sometimes get his head down and, think about himself a bit more than maybe the team's success. And that is certainly something that a player with Sancho's profile tends to do from time to time. So I think there's a chance that they might get him. And I think some of the reporting is that, let's say Sebastian Kehl and Lars Ricken are hotter on the idea than Niko Kovac, just because he is a head coach that perhaps doesn't really appreciate that type of player for his system.
Well, and also you have to ask the question, is there maybe a better option out there that Dortmund can realistically sign?
I mean, a better option than Jadon Sancho circa 2024 at Manchester United, certainly. But I mean, it would be disingenuous to say that, we don't know what Jadon Sancho is, because even his second stint at Dortmund was pretty good. And obviously that came after months of not being allowed to train at a professional level at Manchester United. And him coming here, I guess we could say a bit overweight and definitely not in peak physical condition. And presumably that wouldn't be the case now. And especially if it's a long-term commitment, that will also be less of an issue, because, it's not about the next 3, 4, 5 months as it was then, but, the next 3, 4, 5 years. And in those terms, I think there is pretty much a zero chance that there is a player out there affordable for Dortmund who's a better option than Jadon Sancho.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm not 100% sure because, again, I'm not a scout. But I don't know. My take right now is that I would do it. Honestly, if it's affordable, then do it. Yeah. Any other potential signings should we look at? We have a couple more questions on that. Tennerbots asks, if we only made one more signing before the transfer deadline, what position would you prioritize? I mean, it's something we talked about already a little bit last episode, where I said that my absolute number one priority would be the number 6 position. That being said, I feel like while the number 6 position, I feel like Dortmund should make a big splurge for, I still feel like going into this season, it probably needs to be another winger and or a 10 or something that can play both, to be honest. But that being said, Lars, now that Emre Can is still dealing with adductor problems, do you think we may have to think about the center back? Because Nico Schlotterbeck is going to still be out for, I assume, a few months. I don't know what the exact status of Emre Can is, but if he's still dealing with the muscular problems that he had last season, which also ruled him out for the Club World Cup, I'm starting to get a little bit concerned.
I think you could argue, even if Schlotterbeck and Can were fully healthy right now, they'd be short a centre half, especially as it pertains to like long-term squad planning. I think we talked about this last time, or maybe the previous episode, but right now Emre Can and Niklas Süle are out of contract next year, and I'm pretty sure that neither one of those guys, I mean, Süle definitely isn't getting a new contract unless he plays for like 30% of what he made so far. Emre Can maybe, but I guess it's a bit unlikely at this point. So you have Anton Schlotterbeck, great. Filippo Mane, nobody knows. And then it's like Rami Bensebaini or another under 19 talent or whatever. So I would argue that centre half is pretty high up the list. The only thing is that they've kind of put themselves into this hole where they just need another attacking player. I mean, right now they are best out-and-out winger, in my opinion, because I don't think Karim Adeyemi and Maximilian Bayer are, out-and-out wingers. I mean, it might be Campbell, who's played, 79 minutes of professional football and wants to leave for Stuttgart. Even if Niko Kovac doesn't really want wingers, I think you at least need to have that option in your arsenal. So I'm kind of thinking also in those terms about Jadon Sancho, because obviously he wouldn't have to be a 10. He could also play on the wing, even if he's not, the fastest, but he never was and still made it work. So that would be one thing. I think if the question wasn't what would we do, what the club do, I think it's probably Chukwuemeka, to be honest, because I think Niko Kovac is completely smitten with the idea of Chukwuemeka, which I can understand, because all these coaches are, proud and think, hey, I can turn this ball of clay into something. And obviously Chukwuemeka is a very enticing ball of clay because he has all the tools. He just needs to stay healthy and maybe mature a bit in terms of, tactical awareness and all that. But the prospect of Chukwuemeka staying healthy, not even for, let's say, 50 matches next season, but just like 25 or 30. I mean, I think Niko Kovac is salivating at that, and Dortmund are kind of hoping that a loan deal with Chelsea can be agreed. I think the chances are pretty good because, as it turns out, Chukwuemeka really likes Dortmund and doesn't want to go to...
Even though he trained in the Bayern kit?
He didn't train in a Bayern kit, he trained in a Michael Olise kit, which is different.
Okay.
I mean, Hugo...
I really don't care, honestly. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old for this nonsense, but
yeah,
you have obviously more context than I have.
I mean, Hugo Ekitike also tended to train in a Dortmund jersey when he was at Frankfurt, and now he moved to Liverpool. So it's not like there are any hints being left or whatever. It's just, especially these guys who know each other from years in the youth ranks, which in terms of Chukwuemeka and Olise makes sense because they were both in English clubs during their youth time in the youth ranks. So I think the reporting is that he didn't want to join Leipzig, and rumors about Leipzig were premature, and he really wants to stay at Dortmund, and Chelsea probably don't have much of a market for him. So I think the most likely outcome in terms of who's the one guy, I'm pretty confident they're going to get done over the line until deadline day, which I think is first week of September this year, is Kane Chukwuemeka.
Yeah, interesting. He, at least in my book, is more of a central midfielder. Do you think that Chukwuemeka and Bellingham, in theory, would make a very good double pivot?
Who's the 6?
I think that would be Bellingham in this.
No, I don't like either one of those guys playing too deep. Obviously,
I would agree.
Obviously, they could do it, especially Bellingham, because of his physicality. But I think their best attributes are going forward, facing forward at least.
They both have attributes that let's say, align with the number 6 position, but it's neither their strong point.
I think they could do it, but like
they have the physicality for sure, for starters.
Yeah, and especially Bellingham. I think Chukwuemeka is, in my opinion, Chukwuemeka is more of a 10 than a 6, whereas Bellingham is probably more of a 6 than a 10, if that makes sense. And both are probably 8s. So in terms of arithmetics, if they played like a 4-3-3 with like 3 central midfielders, then having Mecha, Bellingham, and Chukwuemeka would be like very hard to beat, just because they are interchangeable. They all have physical tools. They are good on the ball, can run. Like that would be a pretty neat combination. But given that they kind of play with like a 6, an 8, and a 10, I'm not so sure how that works out with those two in a double pivot. I have no issues with Chukwuemeka being the 10. I think that's what Kovac likes him the best. I think the cameos he made during the second half of last season, he basically played like a 10 most of the time. I mean, remember when he came on against, was it Gladbach for Maxi Bayer when Bayer got injured? It's not like he brought on a central midfielder for an attacking player. Like Chukwuemeka was playing basically a 10 role and did very well. So I think that could work.
Yeah, I mean, he carved them all up, right? Within like how many minutes?
7 or
Wasn't
so?
that the game that... Yeah, Dortmund just completely turned around with Chukwuemeka right before halftime.
Yep.
That's what I remember, with some really nice dribblings in midfield, some good passing.
And he also had a very good game when he started all of a sudden against Freiburg. That was on paper more of an 8 because I think Brandt played in the 10 spot, but I mean, it's all a bit mathematical and academical, because at the end of the day, all these guys can play everything basically in midfield.
And they can move around on the football field, yes.
And they tend to do, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, well, while we're on the subject, honestly, you told me that you didn't really watch the friendly against Siegen, and obviously Siegen right now are a 4th division team that just got promoted to the 4th division. Obviously, they were on a very good run of form, I think, and they're also already within their season. And, there are obviously a lot of grains of salt if Dortmund beat up on a team like that. I think the final score was 8-1, but I am referencing the last season and how the friendlies went there in the beginning, which was just atrociously for Dortmund, to be honest. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about is Joe Bellingham. Tomorrow, Saturday, will be another friendly for Dortmund against Lille, I think, where we'll obviously see more. But I mean, the sample size is still very small, but nevertheless, Joe Bellingham playing in the half spaces behind the attackers. I mean, Julian Brandt basically playing false 9. Adeyemi was playing more on the left wing than centrally too, because there was no Guirassy to play off of in the first half. But I just find that Joe Bellingham already, has such a presence. He was involved somehow in more or less any attack or goal that Dortmund created. He has some amazing forward passing capability. I really like him next to Pascal Groß as well. Dortmund's overall in that game played very direct and very quick after they won possession. So on Joe Bellingham, I just want to say, from what I've seen so far, I'm feeling extremely positive on him. I'm feeling extremely good, and I'm very satisfied that Dortmund signed him. I think he's going to be a massive upgrade wherever Niko Kovac plays him. But I'm already fairly certain that this is going to be a successful thing. Obviously, that was just against the 4th division team, and he may look a little bit different in a normal league match, let's say. But I think in terms of strategic thinking, the vision, the passing ability, he has just so much forward momentum already. But when he's playing a little bit deeper, the way he can maintain position, the way he can move with the ball, circle around the ball, receive a pass, turn around, all these things, all very flowing, all very good also under pressure, and all the things I've seen so far from him make me very happy about this signing. And just one overall note is that even though this was just the first friendly, Dortmund already looked like a team that has a little bit of an identity, where automatisms are already there, which is, I think, a big advantage over what we all saw at the beginning of last season. So it doesn't seem to me like Dortmund are building from zero, but they have a foundation under Niko Kovac that they can work with. And what we also saw is Svensson playing very centrally at times, slotting in also to help with the playmaking. And since we saw Jan Kutu in the same role, who, by the way, did score against Siegen a very nice goal.
And kiss the badge.
Yeah, and kiss the badge. We are all here rooting for his improved second year. But just one tactical wrinkle I think we're going to see more often is that both wingbacks, be it Kutu or be it Svensson, tug more to the inside, because both have shown that they have playmaking skills. So that is certainly something I'm looking forward to the season, to see that put opponents really under pressure, because I think Dortmund, while right now have almost no wingers, I think they are going to be extremely strong playing through the center. And if you think about it, I mean, the goal is also centrally. I think they're going to create a lot of danger that way, playing a very vertical brand of football. And, the positional play in the half spaces so far, from what I'm seeing, looks really good. There's a little bit of flow to it. So, I think LL Cool Ray on Blue Sky is asking if it's possible for Dortmund to win any title this season. Realistically, I would say if they win something, it's probably going to be the cup. But I think Niko Kovac is someone who knows how to win a cup, even if he sometimes needs a little bit of help of the referee. But I personally am hoping that they're at least going to win the DFB Pokal. What it will take, because we've gotten this question too, for what Dortmund would have to do to really compete for the Bundesliga. I think right now we would have to rely a little bit on other teams weakening. I mean, Dortmund, I think, are going to be better than last season, but I don't think they're going to be anywhere near being a normal title contender. I think there's much more work to be done. Lars, I'm going to forward this question to you. What do Kiel and Ricken need to do to make, well, not a title contender? I think the question was to bring Dortmund back within the top two of the Bundesliga.
I'm not sure they need to make to do too much, because honestly, I think the rest of the league outside of perhaps Bayern is coming down towards Dortmund. Leverkusen are doing like a complete overhaul, and they've signed Erik ten Hag, which, I mean, that can work, but it can also go spectacularly wrong. And they've lost Jonathan Tah, Granit Xhaka, Florian Wirtz. I think those three, and maybe Patrick Schick, were their four most important players last season. They also lost Jeremy Frimpong, so maybe it's 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 6 or whatever. So I think Leverkusen, to me, if it wasn't Leverkusen, more people would be talking about it, because that's like the biggest question mark in the entire Bundesliga, in my opinion. Frankfurt lost Ekitike. They did sign Jonathan Burkhardt, but he's injured quite a bit and had like his best season ever last year for Mainz, so maybe he comes down to earth a bit. Obviously, Frankfurt seem to never miss on the transfer market with big transfers, so they'll still be there.
They did sign Litzo Dorn, who I really rate.
They haven't yet.
Oh, haven't yet?
No.
All right, but maybe about to.
It's proving more difficult than people have thought, I think.
Interesting.
I think Leipzig are going to be pretty good, but like they are coming from a pretty low level under Marco Rose last season.
They were worse than Dortmund.
Yeah, which
somehow
was hard. And obviously they have the benefit of not playing in Europe this season, so they have only the German competitions, which makes it easier for them.
They also have the benefit of not playing in the Club World Cup. I think we must not underestimate the strain of that on Dortmund season.
I mean, we don't know the strain of that on Dortmund season, because obviously the assumption is probably fair that it's going to have some sort of negative impact, but at least at Dortmund themselves, they are kind of spinning it in a positive way, because they spend so much time together. And also that the players are coming back on a pretty high physical level.
Yeah, you can tell.
I mean, I'm not sure you can tell, because they've only played against Sportfreunde Siegen, who on Sunday are playing against Dortmund's second team in the Regionalliga. So
I don't know. My eye test tells me that they are far more in far better shape than they've been at the same point last season. That's all I can tell you.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that was purely down to having a competent coaching staff.
Maybe that is correct. I mean, Niko Kovac also made some changes to the coaching staff. I think Seth Forsyth.
Shad.
Or whatever.
Shad Forsyth.
Shad Forsyth. Yeah, almost. Yeah. He has been axed, or
his contract was not renewed.
Or went on his own accord, whatever. He brought someone in from Wolfsburg. His name obviously escapes me. But I just wanted to make the point that Niko Kovac has brought in some of his own people, I assume, and made some changes to the physio team.
Which, if we're a quick aside, which I think is quite interesting because basically the entire coaching staff and team behind the team, as we like to say in Germany, is now aligned with Kovac's vision, as it were. And he only has a contract for this season. So that's something that's definitely going to be looked at over the next few weeks. And unless they have an absolute stinker of a start to the season, which I just don't really feel like that's likely because they also have kind of a cakewalk schedule. I think it's pretty safe to assume that Kovac is going to sign a contract extension, maybe during the September international break, maybe during the October international break, but at the latest, I would say around Christmas time.
Yeah, and apologies to @MarkFinko on Twitter, who not asked if Dortmund could return to the top two, but how big is the trust in Kiel to put out a squad that can get BVB back in the top two? So, how big is your trust?
In Kiel or in Kiel and Ricken?
It just says Kiel here, but you can include Ricken too. I'm more than willing for you to modulate the questions that have been submitted.
I mean, I think including Ricken ups the level of confidence at least a little bit because I kind of like his no-nonsense approach. I think the way he handled, at the end at least, the Mislintat drama, as it were, was quite good. I think I like that he brought in Thomas Broich for the youth department. I think I like the new under-19 coach, at least from what I've read about him, Felix Hirschnagel. I think Ricken is kind of a pragmatician, which sometimes makes sense in this business. If it was just Kehl, I think it would be pretty hard to have too much confidence in him after what happened last year when he had his War of the Roses with Mislintat and was left standing. Even though I think a lot of times over the last, let's say, 18 months or so, we were all kind of saying, well, Kehl kind of doesn't really, isn't doing the greatest job, but kind of we liked all his transfers. Like even last season, we liked Jan Couto, who didn't do much in his first season. We definitely liked Maximilian Bayer, Pascal Groß, Waldemar Anton. It's kind of hard to criticize Sebastian Kehl when you like all the transfers he does, but it just doesn't really feel like he's inspiring too much confidence in people, I would say. That's probably putting it quite lightly.
I mean, overall, there are certain negatives. I mean, the whole Ryan Cherky debacle, we can definitely also put on Kiel. And yeah, there are also maybe just transfers. You know, you can like the ones he make while saying that there may be transfers he should have made or other positions he should have addressed. Another question from Scott Smith. Thoughts on their Capitán retaining the armband for the third successive manager despite seemingly not having a guaranteed spot in the starting 11 and there being an obvious successor in Nico Schlotterbeck. And of course, Emre Can also, as we discussed earlier, he is, of course, having a contract running out. So my question, almost on top of that, are Dortmund in danger extending Emre Can's contract just because he is also wearing the team captain? This is a thought that could creep into the front office's minds.
I think that's a construed argument. He's going to get another contract if this season proves that he's worthy of one. I think it's pretty much nailed on that Nico Schlotterbeck is going to be the captain in 26 and going forward, especially once he signs his contract extension, which shouldn't be too long. I think he's pretty much nailed on to extend until 2030, which is a crazy year just to say. But the thing is that you couldn't really make Schlotterbeck the captain right now because he's spending too little time, in the dressing room. It's not a great situation when you make an injured player captain who might not play before October, although they are optimistic that he's going to play in September. And I think it was just the smart idea to just keep things as they are, because honestly, I think Emre Can, much maligned as he is, I think he's the kind of person who does well as a captain. I think he likes the responsibility. I think he's been a good captain for them. Maybe not always a good player, but I don't really have an issue with, how he goes about things on the pitch most of the time. Obviously not always, but most of the time. So I think it was the smart idea to just let things be the way they are and then have them come to a more natural conclusion in 26, or, just a transfer of power to Nico Schlotterbeck then, who I don't think like anyone is arguing with Nico Schlotterbeck being Dortmund's next captain, and I don't think Schlotterbeck himself is like chomping at the bit so much that he's like, annoyed by having to spend a year as vice captain to Emre Can.
Yeah, I think it's smart to not create a fuss about this whole topic right now. I think Dortmund have a lot of different issues, so yeah, I'm kind of with Niko Kovac on that. I don't think Emre Can being captain right now is the worst thing in the world. I honestly also don't think captaincy is all that important, honestly. So I'm very much okay with that. Yeah, I think this is more or pretty much that all that we can discuss right now. There are of course some questions on some names, say Facundo Buonanotte, if you have any thoughts on that player.
My extensive
attacking midfielder.
My extensive scouting of relegated Leicester last season, non-existent. However, I did ask, as it were, ChatGPT, or a somewhat more professional version of that, let's say, and did some data scouting at least. And interestingly enough, it turns out that at least from a statistical profile, he's not only a pretty good scorer. I think he scored like 3 or 7, one of those. And he was involved in, let's say, 10 goals for Leicester this last season as, a 20-year-old from Argentina in the Premier League. Not too bad of a going, especially for a side that was relegated. And the more interesting aspect was actually...
He scored 5 in the Premier League and 1 in the FA Cup, so that makes 6 goals in total.
Yeah, but he had like 10 goals and assists or something along those lines. The more interesting thing actually was that he is one of the most diligent workers in terms of his statistical profile, like tracks back quite a bit, enters a lot of duels and wins a surprising amount for a 20-year-old attacking player from Argentina. You always think, hey, that's a dribbler, but he actually likes to put in the work. And he's also one of the most aggressive players. I think he saw quite a few bookings last season, committed quite a few fouls. So, I mean, it's always a bit problematic to put too much onto that sort of thing, but sometimes you can tell that that's a player that likes to get stuck in, has the right kind of mentality, is not just there to, show off attacking wise, but also willing to put in some defensive work. And we have to always keep in mind that it's a Niko Kovac Dortmund side where players like Jamie Gittins didn't do well, but diligent players like Maximilian Bayer, and even to an extent Karim Adeyemi, had an uptick in form once Kovac took over, and I think that's going to be a continuing trend. So that's the one reason why I think possibly they like the idea of signing Buonanotte more, at least in terms of Kovac, than, another reunion with Jadon Sancho.
Yeah, that is something I was just wondering about as well. And right now, Transfermarkt is estimating his transfer market value at 20 million euros. His contract with Brighton runs out in 2028. Like you said, he is 20 years old. But my question now is, you've talked a lot on this show right now in like building the squad and, also the team behind the team, as you said, sort of in Niko Kovac's image. And my one question, Lars, isn't this something that should not happen? Shouldn't be Dortmund building something or an identity that is not always, 100% aligned with the coach? I know in Europe operational business, it's easier said than done. I think maybe one thing that Kovac wanted is a number 6, and he's probably not getting that. But to me, it still sounds like Dortmund are once again, aligning everything to what a coach wants and not really professing an overarching identity. Is this something that I'm sensing right now, correctly or incorrectly? And if so, is this something we should be criticizing once again?
I mean, it seems to me like they don't think it's mutually exclusive, because especially Lars Ricken has talked about how he views Niko Kovac and his characteristics and the things he looks for in a player as something that fits very well with Dortmund, and his own idea of what a Dortmund player should look like and how he should behave and all that. The work ethic, the athleticism, physicality, willingness to put in the work, as I said, work ethic, perhaps being a bit more important than, just the pure talent and relying on natural ability. Obviously, there needs to be a happy medium with all that stuff, but I don't think they view it as we are signing a player that only Niko Kovac can use, and once Kovac leaves, which, that's going to happen within the next 3 years, at the very least, just going by, modern football statistics, and especially with Kovac, who's been sandpacking at his 3 last clubs during his second season, and in some ways it's his second season at Dortmund. Obviously, he only took over in February, but still, I think they look at it as our visions are aligned with what Niko Kovac wants in a player, and as such, we will have a use for him extending beyond the life cycle of a modern football coach. So I don't think they think it's mutually exclusive, but I think that you can definitely make the case that there needs to be a happy medium in terms of also going for players that Kovac maybe doesn't really appreciate as much as some other profiles, but just to have all your bases covered, as it were.
Yeah, I'm just overall really intrigued how the whole Kovac period will work out for Borussia Dortmund. I mean, when he was hired, a lot of people thought that they might hire someone else in the winter because they were not really confident in Kovac, but obviously the way things turned out, I think Dortmund are pretty set on him. Like you said, you were expecting a contract extension in September, and I think this is probably where we're headed as well, unless like you said, things are really going off the rails. But then obviously you have a longer commitment to Niko Kovac, and then my question is, how will that work out, and is Niko Kovac a good enough coach for Borussia Dortmund, or would they want someone better? Maybe they will find someone on the market where they have upgrading potential. This is something that I have a lot of interest in, is how is coach scouting, if you want to call it that, working for Borussia Dortmund? What is Lars Ricken's approach to that? And, do they just want to have some consistency on that position for now after, I want to say, the stint with Terzic and Shine, and now Kovac has also been very wild. So yeah, I'm really intrigued how that is going to go if we sit here next season. Is it going to be the second summer preparation for Niko Kovac, or is it once again an entirely new phase? And it's, like it always is, transition season. I mean, truly, next season I think is going to be far more interesting, because I think Dortmund will be far more able to rebuild the squad than they are currently now. Because you talked about it, be it Can, be it Süle, there are some ginormous contracts. Also, Sebastian Aller. You can also mention that are going to expire, and that will free up a lot of wage, and for Dortmund to have the chance to make new mistakes. So I think we can knock it on the head here. I think, Lars, you might have just done that.
It was in my
anyway.
head, but I was sure you're going to mention it, Stefan.
So, as always, everyone out there, thank you for listening, and until next time, goodbye.